and we will be focusing on the polio virus. And these viruses are inactivated when heated at 55 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes, and magnesium prevents inactivations. Okay, and since they are the viruses, they cannot be cultivated in artificial culture media, and they requires different cell lines, okay, cell culture system to cultivate the viruses. That's why they can be cultivated in the cell line cultures derived from the human tissue or from monkey kidney, testes, or muscles. Hello. Some background noise is there. Please make your microphone mute. Okay. Okay, and this group of virus requires the specific membrane receptor for the infection. Okay. So now let us discuss regarding the properties of these viruses. They are the NACLET virus with the icosahedral nucleocapsid symmetry, and the size is 30 nanometer. Okay, they are very smaller. The outer capsid layer contains 60 protein protomers, and these protomers or these protein subunits have 4 peptides, that is the BP1, BP2, BP3, and BP4. Okay, and these are important in pathogenesis. These are the structural components which are important in pathogenesis as well. Okay, and they have the linear molecule of single stranded RNA, positive sense RNA with 7 to 8 kilo base pairs genome sequence. Okay, they are called as picorna because their RNA is very small. See here, only the 7 to 8 kilo base pairs. Pico means very small, RNA means ribonucleic acid. So since they are the RNA virus which contains the positive sense single stranded RNA with very small genome size, only 7 to 8 kilo base pairs. Okay, so this is the genomic structure that contains the structural regions that code for these viral proteins BP1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and some non-structural regions that code for some regulatory enzymes and all those things. Okay, so now this is the electron micrograph of poliovirus. This is the real image that is taken in the electron microscope. So these are the polioviruses. Okay, that is being described here. So this virus attach with the specific receptors, penetrate inside the host cells, uncoating takes place, and synthesize the viral components. And finally, these viral components are the precursors assemble and then finally got released from the cell. So this is the replications, how they replicate. Okay, so that means see here the receptor is very important to engage. So since the receptor for the poliovirus are here in the GI, gastrointestinal tract, so that's why we acquire infection by ingation. Okay, see, this is the outline how these viruses replicates. First, they interact with the receptors, enter inside on course, and there will be the replications. In replication process, here first, there will be the function of the genome copies, as well as there will be the transcription and translation for the production of structural components. Okay, and once the genome copy and the structural components synthesized and they will assemble further, and finally they release out from the host cells. So this is the outline how these viruses replicates within the host cells. Okay. See here the specific receptors, that is the VPR receptor on the cell membrane of the host cells. Okay, we should remember this one, VPR receptor, viral specific receptor, and they enters inside via the process of called as endocytosis, or simply we can call it as also, that is the receptor mediated endocytosis. It is also called as viropexis, and then they enters into the cytoplasm, and the outer capsid layer release out or the broken out, and finally it's called as uncoating. Okay, and this uncoating, and then after uncoating, two process takes place. One is the genome replications, okay, which is required for the newer progeny, and another is the transcription and translation. Okay, transcription means the information that is transcribed into the genome copy, and that will be expressed by the translation process, and the structural and the regulatory proteins will be synthesized here, and finally they got assembled. Okay, so this is the replication of the poliovirus. Okay, now the structure and the replication of this much for the structure and replication of the poliovirus. So now the important one is the pathogenesis, which can be asked even in the examination also. Okay, so as I have already mentioned, the receptors to enter inside the host cells is present in our GI. So that's why the mode of infection in this case or in poliovirus is the fecal-oral route. So that means the poliovirus which are there in the GI, in the fecal material, contaminated fecal material, if we engage them, then we acquire infections. Okay, and how it progresses. First, what happens? They multiply locally. Okay, in the intestine and the oropharynx, they multiply locally, and the antibody is found in blood of patient with abortive and non-paralytic poliomyelitis. Means once they multiply in the GI, it doesn't mean they results in the clinical conditions, that is the poliomyelitis. The patient can be asymptomatic, but in those conditions, if we try to find out the antibody against the poliovirus, then we may found. Okay, I'll try to explain it more clearly. Okay, it is very clear what happens in this. Okay, this will be very much clear to you. See what happens. First, once you engage the organisms, they replicate locally. Okay, in the oropharynx and the intestinal mucosa, that is called as alimentary phases. Okay, and then during these multiplications, this virus is spread to the tonsil and multiply in the Pierce patches, cervical and mesenteric lymph nodes. Means the local tonsillar lymph nodes or the MALT which are present in the GI, okay, or the lymph nodes, okay, that are present in the adjacent area of the GI. Okay, there the viruses multiply, that is called a lymphatic phase. Okay, and when after some episodes of multiplication in the lymph nodes, local lymph nodes in the GI, okay, they finally enters into the blood streams, that is called as viremic phase. Okay, that is called as viremic phase. So till now, the patient will not have any kind of symptoms. Even in the viremic phase, in most of the cases, almost 95% of the cases, the virus do not further spread, do not further multiply, and the patient might have some asymptomatic or non-specific features. Okay, here we can say the patient will have infections, the virus will present in the blood, but will not have any typical features. Okay, some non-specific features or some undifferentiated clinical illness can be seen, but that automatically cleared. Okay, in most of the cases. But in some cases, which is the very much important aspects, is in some cases these viruses via the nerves, they travel towards the central nervous system via retrograde axonal transport, okay, and then they may lead to the paralytic conditions. And this one is important, that is called as neurological phase, okay. That means they will ingest, they will multiply locally, and again they multiply in the local lymph nodes, lymphatic phase, and then they intercept to the bloodstream, that is viremic phase. Almost more than 95-98% of the viremic phase do not spread further, and during that time the patient might have some asymptomatic features, and finally the patient got resolved. But in this case here, the viruses manage to bind to the nerve endings, because they have the receptors to bind on the nerve endings, and via the retrograde axonal transport they reach to the CNS and cause the paralysis. Okay, so that is the pathogenesis of the viruses. Okay, see here that the polio virus, they can spread along the axonal nerves to the CNS, okay, and along the lower motor neurons. Means these areas got involved, okay, and then patient will have the such kind of complications. That is the okay. So now clinical findings. See here, this apparent infection without symptoms means patient will have the infection but not have any kind of symptoms. That means in the viremic phase they do not further multiply, and the patient the infection subsided. Okay, or sometimes the patient might have mild illness also. Okay, and these two clinical findings are not important. The important one is this, because these may progress to these conditions. Okay, that is the aseptic meningitis and the paralytic poliomyelitis. Aseptic meningitis means they multiply in the CNS and they inflame the meninges. Why they are called as aseptic? Because the viruses are not easily identified in the CSF sample. They are not cultivable, because they are not easily cultivable. That's why they are called as aseptic meningitis, because it may lead to the meningitis also. And finally the paralysis of the affected organ. Okay, so that is the poliomyelitis. So these are the stages, okay, that we see in the polio, and these two can be fatal: aseptic meningitis, and in case of paralytic poliomyelitis, it may fatal, or the remnants, that is the disability may remain for prolonged period or till whole life. Okay, so that's why this is important. Okay, because the patient may remain symptomatic till the whole courses, and some may lead to these conditions, and that may persist for whole life. Okay, so now these are certain terminology. For example, abortive poliomyelitis. So here the patient okay, here this is the most common form. Here the patient will have some non-specific features, and the patient will recover in a few days. So that means paralytic poliomyelitis will not be there. Okay. The non-paralytic poliomyelitis, I have already mentioned, there will be the feature of the meningitis due to multiplication of the virus in the CNS involving the meninges. Okay, and another is the paralytic poliomyelitis. This is important because there will be the paralysis of the affected organ. Okay, due to the damage of these motor neurons, okay, the limbs, most commonly the limbs will be the paralyzed. That is called flaccid paralysis. This is very much important because it may persist for life. Okay, this is very important. See here, this is shown in figure. Okay, see here, due to the polio, and there is a disability till whole life. Okay. This is more about the pathogenesis. So now how we diagnose? As we have already discussed regarding the diagnostic approach. The first one is the direct observation of the organism. In virus, it is not possible, but we can do electron micrography, but not present all the times. Another is the culture, that is the recovery of the virus. This is also not common because the establishing the cell culture lab is not easy. Because it is very difficult to maintain those cell lines viable, and it is very difficult to prevent contamination by the other bacteria and other things. So that's why cell culture is also not the easy job. In cell culture, you can see the cytopathic effect if we could manage culture system. Okay, but culture can be done in the monkey kidney cell lines or the human cell lines. That is the cell culture. Okay, that is the recovery of the virus. Okay, so indirect evidence of the CSF analysis also help us, because there will be increase in the protein content, and the glucose level will not altered. Okay, there will be the normal glucose level, and WBC count not so high, but relatively it is increased leukocytes in CSF sample, with the more common one is the lymphocytosis. Okay, lymphocyte will be high. Okay, since this is the viral infection, in viral infections the lymphocyte will be high. Okay, so this is the indirect evidence. Okay, and now the most important one is the antibody detection. That is the antibody against the antigens, that is the C antigen and the D antigen of the poliovirus. If we could detect in the patient serum, basically in the paired sera, then if there is the increase in the titer of the antibody, then in those conditions we can say the patient is having polio. Okay. So now epidemiology, it occurs worldwide. Okay, occurs in all age group, but children are more commonly affected or susceptible. Adults have gained the acquired immunity, that's why less common in adult. Okay, spread by fecal-oral route, as I've already mentioned, and the important point is this: they can excrete for several weeks in the feces, even after the convalescent phase or the recovery phase. Okay, that means the infected persons are the main source of infections, because they can be spread out via the fecal material for several weeks from the infected person. Okay, so that's why poor hygiene, overcrowding, lack of diagnosis also facilitate the spread of this disease further. Okay, and some explosive outbreaks can occur due to contamination of water supplies by sewage. Okay, so that means the areas where there is the improper water sanitation, sewage disposal systems, then in those conditions there is the chances of having outbreak also. Okay, so now, but luckily some preventive measures are there, that is the immunoprophylaxis are there in the polio. As you all know, that is the polio thopa, that is the oral polio, and then that is the IV. Okay, that is the injectable polio. Okay, IPV, OPV, and IPV. The live vaccines, that is the oral polio vaccines, which was first introduced by the Sabin, which is available, and they multiply, infects, and then produce the antibody against the polio virus. So these live oral polio vaccines is useful to maintain the local immunity, because the antibody A, IgA, since we engage them via the oral route, the viruses will have the similar course as in live polio virus. Okay, natural polio virus. Same in similar way, the viruses enters, multiplies, but they are not, their pathogenesis has been lost. Okay, so here what happens, this live polio virus, when we ingest as a vaccine, okay, then they will provide us the local immunity. Means the antibody against this virus will be there in our GI. Once the patient will ingest them, this antibody will not allow them to enter inside the GI and enters into the blood circulation. In this way, they will be helpful. Okay, and mass oral polio vaccinations also helps in the development of the herd immunity also. Okay, so since these are the live vaccines, these also might have certain kind of complications in immune suppressed individuals. Okay, and then in those conditions, the killed vaccines has been used. These are the injectable vaccines, and these injectable vaccines, these vaccines are relatively safer, but it requires the continuous booster doses to maintain the immunity. So this is the preventive measures. Since these vaccines are polio is the vaccine preventable disease, through the effective vaccine policies by the government, Nepal also has announced the eradication of the polio. There are several countries that have already been announced to be eradicated, or the polio has been eliminated. But till now, the WHO has not announced that polio has been eliminated from the world. Okay, so though some countries have already announced as a polio-free countries. Okay, so this is more about the polio. So now in polio, there are certain points that you must know. One is the preventive measures. Okay, it can be asked in community medicine as well as in microbiology. In microbiology, one is the laboratory diagnosis. In laboratory diagnosis, serology. Okay, serology would help to diagnose. One is the culture, and another one I forgot to mention here is the PCR. Okay, that is the gene detection. We can also have to diagnose the case. Okay, but light microscopy, culture, okay, that these are not possible in our setup. So this is the lab diagnosis part. And another one is the pathogenesis. This one is also important. Okay, pathogenesis, right? So if pathogenesis asked in polio, then you can write this one. Okay, this is very much informative to describe the pathogenesis of the polio virus. Okay, so this much for today. If you have any questions, then let us discuss. Otherwise, we'll finish our class. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? No. Okay, then thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.